You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, let's get into it. Let's talk politics. First and foremost, what is happening here in, first, what's happening in Georgia. We've been spending lots of time in Georgia talking about there, and we've been emphasizing to you about Republicans and what they're trying to do. All across the country, Republicans have been putting in place, proposing significant bills that will greatly undercut voting, especially black voters. In Georgia, what they're trying to do, folks, is beyond despicable. Because of what happened with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris winning that state and John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock both winning U.S. Senate seats, what they're doing, they're actually trying to get rid of voting on Sundays. They want to curtail early voting 5 days. And they're trying to change the law where if you did not vote in the general election, you can't register and vote for the runoff election. It is a number of things that they're doing and trying, folks, that makes no sense whatsoever. And so we're going to be talking about that with Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Let me introduce my panel as well. Let me know, folks, when Cliff is there. Of course, our Thursday panel every Thursday, Dr. Greg Carr, Chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies, Howard University. Erica Savage-Wilson hosts Savage Politics Podcast, as well as Reese Colbert, Black Women Views. And so, as I said, let's now bring in Cliff Albright into our conversation. Cliff, always glad to see you. It's crazy, Cliff, what they're doing there. And I keep telling people how dastardly it is what's going on. I mean, they are, to say they're going to get rid of, because they're scared of souls to the polls, trying to cut early voting down to 5 days. The Republicans in Georgia want to cheat in all future elections.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that's amazing about that, Roland. Good to see you. One is that, basically what they're trying to change is a system that they set up. Back in 2005, they pushed the absentee voting, and mainly because they but the reality was that it was mainly their folks that they were expecting to use it. And to a certain extent, that's been true for some of these years. But as we all know, in 2018 and definitely last year and then just last month in this runoff elections, black voters, people of color all across the board, but especially black voters used it to a great extent, literally shocked the world by using the vote by mail process. So now a process that they set up, they all of a sudden want to scream is fraudulent and is a fixed situation. And again, keeping in mind that this state went through not one, not two, but 3 different recounts and accounting, whatever, to double check the election. The Secretary of State repeatedly has said that there was no fraud, that this was one of the safest elections that they've ever had. He told the entire country that there was no fraud, and yet you have all of these bills that are coming out under the guise of trying to prevent voter fraud. So we know exactly what it is. It's just straight up voter suppression. It's just straight up Jim Crow. It's just straight up poll taxes and counting of jelly beans. They are shameless in the ways that they're trying to steal our votes.
And again, talking about how significant this is, they are scared to death next year of Stacey Abrams running against Brian Kemp for the race to be governor of Georgia. Also, Senator Raphael Warnock is going to be running for re-election as well. And so they are trying to rig. Donald Trump loved running his mouth. Republicans kept talking about how the election was rigged. This is actually election rigging, what they are trying to do in Georgia.
Yeah, it's election rigging, and it's being led by folks that have been rigging elections for a long time. One of the main sponsors of the largest of these bills, the omnibus bill that includes a whole bunch of these procedure and voter suppression tactics in it, is a representative called Fleming, who years ago in a very rural county, right? And we say this all the time, that when we don't deal with voter suppression in rural areas that happens in the darkness, it's only a matter of time before it expands like bacteria, right? Or like a virus. And so this Fleming person literally was trying to steal votes in rural Hancock County, right? Trying to get people kicked off the voter rolls, right? Trying to investigate voters. And now this is the person that's leading the attack on the statewide voter suppression that's taking place. So again, these are folks that, they've been at this for a long time, but now with the emphasis of the big lie, right? The national big lie. And again, in spite of the fact that we know that there's no fraud taking place in in these elections, these are the folks that are attacking our right to vote right here in this state. And again, it just really emphasizes why we critically, urgently, we need H.R. 1 and H.R. 4 at the federal level, the restoration of strengthening of the Voting Rights Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We need these acts passed, not tomorrow, not next week. We need them passed yesterday, because that is one of the main ways that we're going to have to have a tool in order to fight against what's taking place, not just in Georgia, but all across the country. As you know, there were 200, it's estimated, I think the Brennan Center estimated that there's 253 bills that have been introduced in 43 states across the country.
Not only that, one of the things they want to do, they want to only allow absentee balloting for folks 75 or older.
That's right. I mean, limiting the absentee to 75 and older, getting rid of no excuse, requiring multiple hard copies of your photo ID. There's even versions talking about, just like they have in Alabama, where you might have to have an affidavit or a witness signature or something to that effect. All of these things, I mean, the range of tactics that they are using, again, is really just shameless. They're not even trying to really hide that it's voter suppression. They're not even really trying to hide. And they've been caught on video in the past. I think it was the speaker, the Republican Speaker of the House, I believe, who was caught saying that if we continue to do this, vote by mail and expanding this voting, that Republicans will never be able to win another election. So they've been very honest about what it is that they're trying to do. The question is, what are we going to do to stop them, both in terms of stopping them in the legislature, stopping them in the courts? As you know, Roland, we're not afraid of suing the state of Georgia. So stopping them in the courts. But again, at the federal level, we have got to have action on these federal bills that are pending in Congress right now. That's why our folks risk their lives in this election cycle to take control of the Senate and to be able to take control of Congress, so that we can pass bold action in order to protect our voting rights and all the other major issues that we care deeply about.
Speaking of that, when you talk about taking that bold action, that also means forcing these Democrats, they're going to have to actually get rid of the filibuster. And so what are you, Latasha Brown and others doing? Because, look, this is what I keep saying. This action has to be taken this year. After this COVID bill, the John Lewis Act should be the next bill. And if that means bringing hundreds of thousands of people to Washington, D.C., dropping them on the Capitol, going door to door, putting pressure on Joe Manchin, on Kristen Sinema, Dianne Feinstein, and others, it has to happen, because if the federal bill is not passed, they can kiss the majority, they can kiss the control away. And you tweeted this the other day, look, we can't make no argument to somebody who didn't vote as to why they should vote if they didn't use the power when they had it.
That's right. And not only to you can't make that argument to somebody who didn't vote, but even folks who did vote, right? Some first-time voters, some folks that went skeptically to vote, right? I've seen responses to a tweet thread that I did yesterday, where people are giving their personal testimonies of how they helped mobilize younger voters, first-time voters, new voters, skeptical voters, right? Who weren't really feeling the process, but they got them to come out. But now those folks are looking at the process and saying, wait a minute, what's going on? We did all this, we got them power in Congress, and now we gotta rely on a parliamentarian. Like that's something that we never had to say when we was going out there mobilizing voters during this past election cycle. That if you go out here, if you risk your life in the midst of COVID, right, if you put everything on the line, what you are going to win is you're going to win the right to have the parliamentarian decide our future, or you're going to win the right to have Manchin and Sinema to decide our futures. That's not what we were telling folks, and that can't be what the reality is. And so, to your question, we've got to mobilize our folks in all of our states to reach out to their representatives, to put pressure on their congressional leadership, that includes Schumer, in order to deal with these folks that are causing us to not be able to squash the filibuster, right? But to also put pressure on the Biden administration. It's not acceptable that they're looking at the antics of a Manchin and a Sinema, and I call them Manchinema, right? Because they're linked like that. But it's not acceptable that the Biden administration is going to just look at these two folks and allow them to dictate the agenda and not use the tools that they have at their disposal to get these people to act right. At the end of the day, Joe Biden's been in the Senate or in the White House for 47 years. If he ain't learned enough tactics by this point right? If he didn't learn enough of LBJ tactics at this point to figure out how to count some votes and twist some arms and get some stuff done, then we may have just put the wrong dude in there. Now, I'm not saying he's worse than the person that was there, clearly, but at the end of the day, we have got to pressure him to use every tool he's got at his disposal in order to get these folks to act right, squash the filibuster, and move on this agenda.
And just for anybody to understand, we were very clear. We were going to have to put pressure on whoever was in power. And so I kept saying, voting is one thing. After folks are elected is another thing. And I'm telling you, the threat needs to be laid down right now, Cliff. It needs to be laid down to Chuck Schumer, to Nancy Pelosi, and every Democrat. We will drop 10,000 people a week on that Capitol. And if those folks on January 6th, I'm talking about saying, look, they were there protesting. I'm saying we're going to bring people. We ain't sitting here trying to overthrow stuff. But we're going to bring people to hit every single United States senator, go to every single one of their offices, fill the chamber up, fill the hallways up, because racial justice has to be there. And I don't give a damn about these Senate rules. I don't care about how we all get along and all that sort of stuff. No, damn all of that. The pressure it should be real simple. COVID bill, first. John Lewis voting bill, second. George Floyd Justice Act, third. Now, after that, y'all can sit here and do what you want to do on immigration or infrastructure, but those should be the first three bills that the Senate and the House confronts.
Those should be the three bills. That's got to be the demand. And the other part of the demand is that to whatever extent he has executive authority to move on some of these things, that he needs to be moving on. For example, even before the H.R. 1 and H.R. 4 are passed, the Voting Rights Acts are passed, they can be doing something at the executive level, right? They can be joining in on some of the existing lawsuits that are already floating through the system. Like, they can be given support to fight against some of these voter suppression tactics. There's executive action that they can use even while we're trying to get those things passed. But your point is absolutely correct, that they have got to prioritize these issues, and not just because it's important to us, but at the end of the day, even if it was just out of their own self-interest, right? Even if it's just out of their own desire to maintain power, what they've got to understand, if they don't act immediately on these voting rights bills, then 2022 can be a wrap, not because of anything that Black Voters Matter does or Fair Fight does or doesn't or anything like that, just because that if they allow this whole slate of bills that is going through these key states, if they allow this to happen, it is going to be incredibly difficult to continue to do what we did last year and what we've been doing. So even if it's just out of a sense of preservation, they need to take action on these issues that we are demanding that they take action on, and that we motivated and mobilized people on throughout the election campaign.
And let's be real clear. Okay, let's just be real clear here. Republicans, we see what they doing. 42 states in America, 42 states, they are proposing voter suppression bills. They wield power. When they have the majority in the House and the Senate and the governor's match on the state level, they say, we're going to sit here and run a train on y'all. And I'm using that language for a reason. That's what they're sitting here doing, Cliff. And Democrats, oh no, we're going to sit here and maintain our congenial rules because, what's going to happen if we're not in power, they're in power. Guess what? They're going to do it like they did with Amy Coney Barrett. So either you use the power when you have it, or you're going to lose the power, and then you can't come to us to save your ass to get it back, because we're going to say, we gave it to you. We went to the polls. We did the best that we could. And let me be real clear. Let me be real clear, white America. Y'all didn't do your job in Maine, where a woman lost. In Kentucky, where McGrath lost, where a woman lost in Iowa. All them white states, y'all didn't do your job. But guess what? We did what we were supposed to do in Georgia in order to get the doggone Senate. Latinos did what they were supposed to do in Arizona to elect Mark Kelly to get what they were supposed to do. And so now you again wants to bail you out? No, you better use this damn power or you're going to lose it in 2022.
You're exactly right. And that's the deal. And when we say that, people need to be clear. It's not a matter of us as organizers or you as a journalist wishing this on the country or wishing this on Democrats, right? It's a matter of, look, we can read the tea leaves, right? Like I said earlier today, like, you don't blame the doctor for giving the diagnosis. So if I'm telling you that if you fail to move on these policies, that there's going to be consequences and repercussions, it's not because I'm gonna be the one out there that's saying that people don't vote, right? But I am telling you, just off of my experience, just as you, Roland, are telling folks off of your experience, we can see what's coming. And we can already see that if there's not movement on these issues, like you said, the Voting Rights Act, COVID, George Floyd, throw in there the increase in the minimum wage, which right now there's that whole fight over whether that's going to be included in this COVID package. But that if there's not student loan, if there's not enough movement on these issues, and there might be one or two that they lose on, right, or they can't get done, right? But if there's not enough movement on this, we are telling folks there's going to be consequences, because it is human nature that if you convince folks to vote because their vote has power, because their vote will change policies and change their lives, and then that doesn't happen, it's not rocket science to know that you are going to see a decrease in turnout. And it may not, it could be 1%, 4%, 5%, whatever. It doesn't have to be a 50% decrease, but with the razor thin margins that we see, that kind of a decrease could be disastrous. That's what we're trying to tell folks, and they have got to take bold action right now. It's not even bold action, because we're talking about policies that are like remarkably popular. The COVID bill is remarkably popular. Increasing the minimum wage, remarkably popular. The voting rights is remarkably popular. So it's not even a big lift. There's just got to be the political will for them to get it done.
Cliff Albright, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. We really appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win.